Boom, live. I think I say something like that every time when I click the button.
I think you do say something like "boom live."
It's exciting, like going live, man. We're
Yeah,
live. It's
we're
like
live.
it's like what's his name? Bill O'Reilly. Fuck it, we'll do it live. uh,
Is that from his Inside Edition meltdown?
I don't know. There's you can find this Bill O'Reilly tape from when he was having trouble with a segment they and he's like, fuck it, we'll do it live. He's like just screaming at everybody. It's pretty good. Super relevant
Oh,
to
Bill.
our super relevant to our Valiant podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure probably nobody listens to him. Is he? He's not even on the air anymore, right? I don't know anything
Oh,
about
I
him
have
really.
no idea.
And nobody
Uh,
needs to chime. We don't really care, So
yeah,
if you have an
not
idea,
really too worried about it.
so
So okay. Um, I know you wanted me to read some Quantum and Woody because the new deluxe edition was released yesterday.
I
Um,
did. I really wanted to read it. Something that's been really a pleasant change, I would say, with the new regime change, is that Valiant gives us collected editions now on PDF. It's really nice. And I buy the deluxe editions. I'm gonna buy the compendiums at some point. But yeah, they gave us the PDF for Quantum and Woody Deluxe 2. I read the whole thing today.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, I was sitting here and it was a really nice day, and it was like probably like 8 in the morning, and my kids' friends showed up, and they just went and rode bikes up and down the street for like 2 hours, and so I was like, I'm gonna read Quantum and Woody Deluxe 2.
Wow.
I don't get to do that. That doesn't happen in my day. Like usually in my day, it's like I might get like a half hour piece, but I don't get a whole lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have kids and I don't have time to do that shit.
Well,
But
it
I
happens
spent
to
my
me.
day today at work and the gym, so at least it was pretty productive.
Yeah. How long have you been doing the
Um,
gym?
what's that?
How long have you been doing the gym? I know it's a little bit off topic, but I'm just curious.
I don't know. A month or two now, probably. Um,
Good for you,
we
man.
were actually probably a little bit longer than that. My wife and I were going and just doing like a lot of cardio, like getting on the treadmill and stuff like that. Which obviously is useful for somebody of my size, but um, honestly, like it's so boring, dude. Like 5 minutes of the treadmill, and oh my God.
Do you have headphones?
Yeah, I have headphones. I listen to music, listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks, and no matter what I'm doing, I can't handle more than 5 minutes on the treadmill before
Damn.
I would, I would almost rather be at the dentist than on that fucking treadmill. But
I usually do like a half hour on the elliptical, and then I do weightlifting after that.
yeah, we've been working with a trainer now for somewhere around a month, maybe a little more than that. I don't know. It's going really, really awesome though. He is super cool. We're just doing once a week with him right now, but he's helping us, kind of plan our weeks out and stuff, and it's going really well.
Do you feel change? Do you feel
Huh?
like any kind of change, like where you're like, I'm feeling better, I'm feeling stronger, or anything like that?
The biggest change I'm feeling so far is just that since we started working with him, I'm actually motivated to go to the gym now because I actually really like the way that he has us working out. Um, because we do a lot of like supersets, where it's like, do like three exercises back to back, rest for a bit, three exercises back to back, rest for a bit, switch it up and go to three different exercises back to back, and, do a bunch of that stuff. And half hour can go by like that, just running through different exercises like that. And it's a lot more like it just keeps my mind active, you know what I mean? Because I can do 10 reps of this exercise and I know, boom, I'm already onto something else, as
Yeah.
opposed to, like I said, the treadmill, where you're just walking and walking and walking for a
So
fucking hour or whatever.
before I had kids, my wife used to do reformer Pilates. Do you know what that is?
Pilates.
Reformer Pilates. You know what that is?
I don't even know much about Pilates, much less variations on Pilates.
Reformer Pilates uses this machine that you lay on, like on your back, and it's got straps, and it's got like rubber bands that are for like the weight retention. And my wife did it, and she's like, "You should do it with me." And I was like, "Sure." And I went and did it, and I did it for a whole hour with a trainer. And when I got done, I was like, "This was the stupidest workout. I don't feel like I even did anything." The next day, my legs didn't work
Yeah.
because they were so sore. And I was like, it's crazy. Like sometimes when you do these kind of workouts, it's like, did I do anything? Like it doesn't feel like I did fitness, but like some of that stuff really has to change. I did Pilates for a while and it was great. And then I had kids and turned into the man you see before you. So,
uh,
as much as I want to be active, you think a lot about like chasing your kids around. My kids want to sit down and play stuff. So I'm always like, okay, let's play the game. Let's play Power Rangers, whatever. Like let's just sit here and do something. So this whole summer I've been like going to the gym, going for walks. I take my kids for bike rides. I've been making lots of changes to my diet, even just because I'm like, I need to get back down a little bit. So
so, um,
the Valiant
anyway,
Fitness workout that we're starting here on this podcast has just been great. The Valiant Workout Podcast.
dude, let's all get bloodshot ripped, man. Um,
Hell yeah.
Valiant Fitness time. No, so no, I did not read any Quantum and Woody, because I knew that I wouldn't have time to get really deep into it. But I did want of the guys that are going to be coming on to Bloodshot since I love Bloodshot so much.
Okay.
Um, so what I did was I actually went and I read, because they did Cable 1 through 5 and then changed the numbering to 150, and then I think it was 155 where Nadler and Thompson came on. So what I did was I actually went ahead and read 1 through 5 because I've never read any Cable comics before, and I just kind of wanted to get a feel for it before I jumped into Nadler and Thompson. And that 1 through 5 was written by James Robinson, who's written some stuff that I've liked. He was writing Earth 2 for DC a while back during New 52, and I really liked that book. So, I mean, it was interesting to read his take on Cable. It was honestly kind of bland. There wasn't really like a lot of like emotion to the story, and that was kind of a bummer. It was a fun read, but it was just fluff. And then I skipped ahead. I didn't read 150 through 154, but I skipped ahead to 155, the first issue of the Nadler Thompson run. And oh my God, they like that issue. I am totally hooked. Like, I am absolutely going to read the rest of what they do with Cable because it was so good. Chris Ferguson is in the live chat, and he's been reading Cable and said that Ed Brisson wrote 150 to 154, and Chris is saying that that was pretty solid. And I believe it. And honestly, I didn't skip over it because I don't want to read it. I just skipped over because I didn't have time to read the rest of that and get into the current run with the Bloodshot writers. So that's why I skipped that. I'll probably go back and read those issues. Because they looked cool. It looked like it was kind of a team. Cable was teaming up with some other characters, but yeah, that one issue I read that Nadler and Thompson did, it was really really well written, and it gives me really high hopes for how they'll approach Bloodshot.
That's cool. I haven't had a chance to read Cable. I think I read it when James Robinson was on it. I didn't think it was very good. I also didn't really like the art. At the very beginning of it, I thought the art was kind of weird. Like there's some
See,
really
I
shit.
actually liked the art. It had one artist for like 3 issues, and then they switched artists after that, and I didn't like it then for like issues 4 and 5, but I really liked 1 through 3. I thought those were solid art.
It's kind of a bummer. Like when I was like in my teen years, I thought James Robinson was like the next big thing of writers. He wrote so much good stuff, and then it seems like the last like 10 years of him writing comics, they haven't been like that great or engaging. There's been a couple of things here or there that have been like good, but for the most part, it's been so forgettable. And it's sad because I think like everything he wrote in the '90s is like you couldn't miss it. You wouldn't want to miss it. Everything he did was just so good. In fact, he had a previous run on Cable, but I think like Zach Thompson, That's one of the guys that's going to be taking over.
Yes, Zach Thompson
Uh,
and Lonnie Nadler.
I've read some of his Black Mass Studio stuff. He wrote a book called The Dregs, I believe it is.
Oh, they wrote that together.
Did they both write it together? Okay, so
Yeah,
I've
that's
read
my understanding.
by them, and it's not like anything. It's not like a superhero book. So, but it was. I was like, it's pretty good. I do tend to like a lot of those stories because I feel like Black Mask does. They do stories like no one else is doing. They're just all so different. Um, so I mean, like I'm familiar with their work, but only on that. I haven't read anything else they've done. So I guess like the thing I would ask, because Cable and Bloodshot aren't too different. I mean, if you think about like what they are and like what they do, like they're both soldiers, they're both enhanced. Um, they tow around guns and they're buff as fuck. So
And they're both
like
pretty serious guys.
they're both very. Cable is so serious. But how what do you think? Like does it give you hope thinking like, hey, these guys seem like they can write a good Cable. I think they could write a good Bloodshot.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what they really did, like, as I was talking about with James Robinson, the bit of his Cable that I read, it was so, like I said, it was just fluff, really, and that can be cool, but that's not going to be. It's never a fluff story is never going to be like my favorite thing. And so that was kind of the disappointing piece of that. Whereas as soon as I got into that first issue, like the first page of the Nadler Thompson run on Cable was immediately a night and day difference. Like it was obviously they put way more thought into building an emotional through line, an emotional story where you can actually connect with the characters and have some empathy for them. And I think that, I think that was, like I said, it was immediately apparent from the first page of that. So if they bring that to Bloodshot, I think it's going to be a really good follow up to Jeff Lemire, because one of the things Lemire did so well has done so well with Bloodshot all the way up until the issue we'll be reviewing today, is make him human. And I think that if we're able to go back in his history to his early days at Project Rising Spirit and get a story that you know, deals with him being more of the machine at that point, but also able to kind of put that emotion and that empathy in there, I think that that's going to make for a really, really interesting and enjoyable read.
Well, that's good to hear. Uh, I definitely need to go look for some of the issues that they've written of Cable, and probably some other stuff too. I'm actually really excited for for them and the writer of
Livewire,
I can't remember. I don't want to butcher her name, so I'm not
Vita
gonna try.
Ayala.
Yeah, I'm way excited for this stuff. And it, I think like I'm hoping after we can talk about Bloodshot later, but I think like I'm ready for like a different path on the book, so to say.
Yeah, I know I've been saying that for a while, kind of ready to. I've loved the Lemire run, but I'm ready to kind of get into more of an action book, because Salvation is not an action book. I feel like there were very action-packed arcs in Reborn. Most of it was a lot of action, and Salvation just hasn't been that. Salvation
Yeah.
has been a very family book. Not that I would say let kids read it, but speaking of, these other writers coming in, I haven't read any Vita Ayala. I know Chris in the live chat is asking if anybody's read The Wilds that she did, and I actually haven't. I did read the first issue of The Dregs by Thompson and Nadler, and I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it was really well written, but it wasn't a story for me, if that makes sense. I get where they're going with it, and I like what that issue that I read was saying. I like the message of it. It's just not the kind of comic that I am probably going to spend the time or money to track down and read the rest of it. So yeah,
I'm not
I
sure if
just
I read The Wilds or not. I might have, but I'm not positive if I have. So I'm just gonna
Chris
assume
said
I
that he's
haven't read it.
heard bad things about it, but I actually heard a lot of good things about that Vita Ayala The Wilds.
Yeah,
Um,
it seemed like a lot of people on Twitter were very excited that she was taking over a Valiant book. So I think that's a good sign.
so Sean is saying he wants the new Bloodshot book to be a mini. What the fuck, Sean? What the fuck? I thought we were bros, man. What's the deal? I thought we were cool. Now you go
We don't
stab me
like
in the
that.
back like this?
We don't like that kind of talk around here, Sean. Okay.
Yeah. Get the fuck out. No.
Get my water out, man.
Yeah. No, Anthony is talking about Ken Lashley. I've looked up a bunch of his stuff. I don't think I've actually read any books that Ken Lashley did the art for, but everything that I've looked up, like the covers that he's done and the interior pages that I've seen, looks really cool. Like he seems to really be a superhero artist. You know what I mean? Like he draws that like some 90s influence, early 2000s superhero style. And I really like that. I think that's a good thing, you know, and I think that that's a positive thing to put into a Bloodshot book, you know.
You know, we had the conversation last week where you said that you'd looked at his art a little bit, and I had read some work that he'd done, but I haven't seen his art for a while. So I went on Twitter and started looking at some of his stuff that people had posted and some art that he had posted. And I'm actually really excited for like what that book's going to look like, because I think he's a little bit he's a really good looking artist as far as like what he's put on the paper. I think it's going to be I mean, if we get a lot of action, like a really action packed Bloodshot book, looks a little superhero-y, I don't think that's necessarily going to be bad. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's me beating a dead horse because I feel like yet again I'll just be like, I just think Salvation's slow, and yeah, but you know, I'm excited, very very excited for all the books to start.
So, my question to you is, since you slammed through Quantum and Woody Deluxe #2 today, what did you think about it? How did you feel? I remember finding the whole Asmus run hilarious, and that included it included the delinquents, didn't it?
Yeah. So I think like for me, like I really thought Asmus did a great job, and I mean I think like overall he had to have, because they kept him around for 12 issues, and the Zero issue, and Giant and Valiant Size, Quantum and Woody, Delinquents, and Quantum and Woody Must Die. He wrote a lot of it, and so one thing that I think I did pick up on reading it today was that it seemed a little more fresh to me, because I guess I forgot a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the just jokes that are within it. I mean, because obviously it's Quan Wood. It's a humorous book, and Fred Van Lente helped a little bit with Delinquents. I would imagine it's probably like plot and maybe not as much dialogue, because the dialogue felt very very much the same as it does in Quantum and Woody Must Die. But I just think that material is so literally like laugh out loud funny. There's so many like just great jokes and funny moments. The plot is really bizarre, kind of gonzo, if you will, just so crazy. But I mean, I probably like the plot better in like Quantum Woody Must Die, just because it's just them. It focuses on the two of them, and there's just funny villains. Like the villains in the Delinquents, I don't think are that interesting. That's maybe like my only takeaway from that. That's a negative, is that the meat people, the meat and plant beast people that they have to deal with the whole time, I don't find them as interesting. However, I do think that like Kano's art in it is awesome. He's a little bit better now, and so he's not just. I don't think he's as good as he is like when he did that opening arc of Kibblesmith's run. But his
Sure.
art looks so great there. Steve Lieber, I believe, does Quantum and Woody Must Die, and I always thought Valiant Size was hilarious too, where they have to save the other Earth. So I mean, there's a lot of great material. They even have Unity 25 in it, the story that involves Quantum and Woody.
Oh, sure.
Never realized until today. I mean, I think like when it came out, it would have been like, who gives a shit kind of moment. But like I noticed on it that Donny Cates had helped write part of that issue, and I
Oh,
was like,
really?
oh yeah, and he's a huge deal now. So hopefully at
Yeah.
some point Valiant finds a way to get him back, because I like so much of his writing. I know we had a conversation where you said you hadn't really read much of his work. I like his work. He's awesome. So hopefully like he likes Valiant and he'll come back one day.
I'm like this close to starting the Donny Cates Venom run.
The new one that just came
Yeah,
out.
there's 2 issues out so far, and I've got
Yeah,
both of them. I just haven't read them yet.
it's good. Art's good too. So
I've heard
I
that.
thought, like there's like with every deluxe edition, I think that there's a lot of great like stuff at the back of the book. There's a lot of great extras in it. It's kind of hard to like review those stories just because they are a bit older. Those Quantum Movie stories came out like 3-4 years ago. But I think like it's one of the more like memorable books. It's just so different than everything else. Like it doesn't have like the same kind of structure as a normal superhero story. Quantum and Woody work so well together with Archer and Armstrong that I think if nothing else, if that even sounds remotely desirable to you, at least pick up the trade of that of the Delinquents. Obviously, I've got a copy of Quantum and Woody 2 on its way. And if you flip over the Dust Jackets, the Delinquents variants as their own little board game. So
Yeah.
I I would give it high marks. I mean, if you buy the deluxe editions, you're probably going to buy it anyway. But that's fun material, and I always hope that Asmus would come back. I don't know if that will ever happen, but he definitely has a good voice for Quantum and Woody, and he's got good dialogue for Archer and Armstrong. So.
I would not mind if he came back and did an A&A book. I might actually that might actually be pretty sweet. So I don't know. But yeah, I actually do remember, like you said, that Quantum and Woody stuff being laugh out loud. And like you said, literally, I don't know that I've ever read any other comics besides the Asmus Q&W that made me laugh out loud. Especially so much. Like almost every issue, I was just busting up. So yeah, I'm sure I'll go back and read it at some point. Just wasn't able to squeeze it in today.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to just sit there and read a 300-page hardcover.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, I think it's great that Valiant's giving those of us who review work that they do, giving us the access to the PDFs of the hardcovers and the trade paperbacks, because we didn't used to get that before. And whenever we've wanted to talk about that kind of stuff, it's had to be like, well, I'll go find the 4 or 5 PDFs I had prior to talk about it. So.
So I don't know how much I want to get into this. Something that Chris clearly has a problem with is Vita Ayala apparently has a history of um, including a lot of politics in their work. And something that Hoosier pointed out is apparently Vita's preferred pronoun is they, which I can respect and will do my best to remember because I have no problem calling someone the pronoun that they prefer. Um, and, something that Chris is worried about is Vita potentially putting her political opinions into the Livewire book. Oh, and I just did it right there. Vita putting their political opinions into the Livewire book. And see, I think that a couple things that I feel with that. Number one, Livewire is very political to begin with. I mean, if you read her character from where she began in VEI with Dice Art, she's someone who thinks a lot about her place in the world, the impact that she has on others around her, all that kind of stuff. And that's why she left Harada, which was a huge deal for her. That was a massive decision for her to make. And everything that she's done since then, leading Unity, she was the same way when Matt Kent was writing her, when Eric Heiserer was writing her in Secret Weapons. She's clearly someone who goes out of her way. She's clearly someone who feels a lot of empathy for others. And when she saw that those kids from the, oh my God, I can never remember, the Narrows or whatever
the Willows.
The Willows, that's what it was called. Those kids from the Willows, when she saw what they had gone through, she felt so strongly for them, she had to track them down and bring them together and protect them. And that's what Harbinger Wars 2 is all about, is Livewire feeling so strongly that people shouldn't be treated certain ways that she's willing to put the entire country at risk and potentially the entire world at risk because she's putting her foot down and saying, people don't deserve to be treated this way. So I think that the idea that we would get a Livewire solo book and not have it filled with that kind of sentiment, I don't think that that's very likely, and I don't think that if I don't think a book without that would be true to who Livewire is as a character. And the second thing I want to say about it is, I think that everybody at Valiant probably knows Vita's previous work, and likely said, you know what, they would be a perfect person to write a Livewire book because they put this into their other work, and they have this type of a voice. So I think that odds are it would fit the character to have a political and social message, and Valiant knew what they were getting when they hired Vita.
So here's my thing on this, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time, not because I'm going to say anything crazy, but because this might be a little long. Okay,
Yeah, I just
I
ranted.
think,
Go for
yeah.
it.
So I mean, here's the thing about, like, as far as like the personal politics. I feel like if you do go back to like to Dice Archer on Harbinger, and if you look at like the work he's done on Imperium, there's a lot of Josh Dicehart's personal politics in the work. Okay, when it comes to like globalization and how corporations are, and certain politics within certain governments, I'm okay with it. Because I mean, really, like, at the end of the day, is the story good or the story bad? I don't have a problem with it. I've grown up as an X-Men reader, and the X-Men are just super heavy-handed. Uh, you know, it's all about racism. It's all about like people who look a certain way, but they're treated poorly just because of something that makes them different from like the normal person. So like all my life as a comic book reader, and X-Men were huge. Like for most of my life, I don't even read it now, but like, you know, up to like about 5 years ago, I was a pretty like dedicated reader from like the time I was like 9 or 10. There's politics all over it. And when you go back and you read a lot of older comics, there's a lot of politics involved. Like right now, I buy old Nightwing trades written by Chuck Dixon. I read old Batman trades written by Chuck Dixon. I read Robin written by Chuck Dixon. I read a lot of stuff from like the Bat family. And Chuck Dixon is like a really big conservative, but like his work is good. I like his work, and I know that Josh is liberal, So I mean, to me, it's just like I don't want to just read books necessarily from like maybe like my viewpoint, or everything's got to be a certain viewpoint. I don't subscribe to that. Um, I just think at the end of the day, like if you like a character, what are the personal politics that you don't want to read? I mean, like if it's a thing about like gay rights or something like that, and I'm not saying it to be mean, but I just think you kind of have to deal with it. I mean, that's just the way of the world. If someone wants to be referred to a certain way, be respectful of it. You don't have to disrespect. If I mean, Livewire, even of itself, even looking like Secret Weapons, there's a bit of politics to that. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm a pretty open-minded guy when it comes to all that stuff. So, I just think if you like the character, give it a shot. Don't worry about politics. I mean, if it's just like super heavy-handed and you can't deal with it, then you make the decision not to support it with your money. But having also known some of the people that work for Valiant and followed a lot of people that work at the staff, I kind of feel like I've seen what their politics are. I'm okay with it. I mean, the world is a round place, and everybody's got different feelings. As long as it doesn't encroach upon anything that I'm really strict against, I don't care. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
like I'm not going to have a problem with someone putting their politics into something, whether I agree with them or not, as long as we don't get a book that's like pro-Nazi. At that point, or like, pro-racism or pro-genocide, because then I definitely would have a serious problem. But if you're like pro-fiscal conservatism and I have a different, idea, different take on it, I'm not saying that. One of my absolute favorite novel writer for a long time, a huge chunk of my life, was Dean Koontz, and he's a very conservative guy.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've been reading and really enjoying his Jane Hawk series of novels. He's three in, and all three of them have been amazing. But Jane Hawk, because she's written by Dean Koontz and is, kind of an extension of how he sees the world, or her opinions come from how he sees the world, she's a very conservative character. And a lot of the reasoning behind the way she acts that she does is because of her conservative beliefs. And I don't agree with her, but it makes sense for the character and it makes sense to push the story forward. And I don't have to agree with the character or the author's politics in order to enjoy the story and appreciate how well it's written. And that's what I would say about comics. If Vita does put their political leanings into the Livewire book, that's not going to be what I use to judge whether or not it was a good book. I'm going to judge that based on character development and story structure and suspense and you know unexpected cool things happening. You know what I mean? There's so many other things that are going to play a role that Vita's politics are probably not going to be anywhere near the top of that list.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm looking at like right now, what you don't see behind me, or in front of me, is like I have a wall of bookshelves, and on these walls, I'm seeing trades from people like Eric Larson, who's super left, and I got books by Ethan Van Sciver, who's super right, and Frank Miller and Jerry Conway, and all these guys who subscribe to a certain political ideology, and I just think sometimes, like, especially right now in the way the world is, people almost are like, you know what, if I believe in like a couple things on the left, I've got to believe like on everything on the left, and I can only support things on the left. And some people are just like, oh, you know what, that must be a bunch of like social justice warrior crap or something like that. I can only support things on the right. And the thing is, like, if you're a person, you can like whatever you want, man. You don't have to just be like, I can only lean one way on everything. So, I hope that as far as like Valiant goes, and as far as like someone coming in to write their characters, I hope that no one's putting in something that they're like, well, I'm alienated, I can't read it, because at the end of the day, like, Eric and I do this podcast because we love talking about this stuff, but at the same time, like, it's kind of a bummer if it's like, well, the company's losing people because like somebody uses they or something like that, one thing I did notice though, because the other night someone posted on our Facebook page and they're like, oh, Vita's blocked people on Twitter. And so I went and looked for it. And there was a couple people on one of the Valiant posts that were saying like, I would love to support the book, but Vita blocked me. But then going through like some of these people's posts, and all they did was like complain about people like her. They had complaints about gay and trans or minority this and social justice warrior that. And I think like if you're being attacking, yeah, you're probably going to get blocked. You can have your beliefs. Everybody can have their beliefs no matter what side of the spectrum you're on. Just be cool. Don't be a dick. If you don't like something, that's okay. You don't have to be a dick to someone about it.
yeah. No, I was just having this conversation today, and here's something that I don't talk about this a ton, but my wife identifies as non-gender binary. Um, she's biologically female and doesn't have a pronoun preference, so I call her her because I think of her as female, and I'm a heterosexual male, so to me, I'm married to a woman. But I also respect that she does identify as, like I said, non-gender binary, and there were points in her life where she thought about transitioning to be a man, and I I mean, that's who she is. I have utmost respect for who she is, the decisions that she's made in her life, and how she chooses to present herself and to identify. And so just spending my life. I mean, I've been with my wife. We've been married for over 6 years now, but we were already together for 6.5 years before that. So I mean, we've been together for almost 13 years. Um, she's an extremely important part of my life. So to me, like, I don't think that you need to agree with her or my stances on any of these issues, but I'm not going to stand for people being disrespectful about that kind of stuff. So, like if you don't understand why Vita might want to use the pronoun they, that's fine. I don't think you have to understand, and I don't think you even have to agree. But I do think in order to be, have some level of common courtesy and, be a respectable adult, you should respect that and, act accordingly. Now, as happened earlier, I will slip sometimes and use the wrong pronoun, but I will do my best to try to use the right pronoun. And if anybody else comes to me and says, you know what, I prefer to be addressed in this way. It's the same thing where if I met a guy and he was introduced to me as Richard, but he told me, you know what, I hate being called Richard, I want to be called Rick, and he's already in my mind as Richard, I'm going to try really hard to make sure that I call him Rick. And if I do slip and call him Richard, I'll be like, hey, I'm sorry, Rick, because, you know, maybe that's a problem for him, right? You know, so it's going to be the same thing if somebody doesn't want to be called him or her and they want to be called they or them. I don't see any problem with that, you know, and I don't even have to agree. You know, I might think Rick is a stupid name, but if that's what this guy that I know wants to be called, I'm not going to spend all my time telling him how dumb a name Rick is. I'm just going to call him Rick and move on with my life.
And I would just like to say real quick that Eric's view of the name Rick is solely his belief, and it does not of the
I actually don't
guy.
mind the name Rick, just to put that out there.
Also, you know, I'm glad that, you know, it's good that you've like the things you were saying about your wife. I'm glad you feel that way because I've seen the videos of her like handling like a sword, and if I were you, I would probably never cross her path.
Oh, she's a badass, dude. She's a fucking
Pretty
badass.
awesome.
Like we went
Like,
to
I don't know her at all, but like those videos are cool. That's not even
but
like phone stuff. That's hardcore.
okay. So all of that aside,
Namaste, right? Is that what we're saying?
something that Hoosier brought up in the live chat is there's another Britannia coming. And that's something that, because we got that Valiant Beyond announcement, we haven't really talked a lot about it. But Robert Gill has been posting quite a lot of process shots of his art. And there's a part of me that is, you know, kind of pining for the days of Reap working on Britannia, because he did both of those first two trades. So it's going to be weird to see Robert Gill doing it, but at the same time, everything he's posted looks amazing.
I agree. And you know what? They're keeping Reap busy. You know, like it's not like he's just gone and we don't get any more
True.
work. He's doing Ninja K. He's gonna do Exo Man
He's
War.
going to do EXO. What the fuck?
I know that one's kind of weird to me. Where I'm just like, you couldn't get like, I don't know, Robert Gill. Like Robert Gill and Reap should have just switched jobs on that one, because I think Gill, he does Exo Man War pretty good. That story, I think it's called the Kill List. Is the storyline before
Yes.
Long Live the King.
Dude, I remember. Sorry, I know I just interrupted you, but what I remember about the kill list was the body language he gave Ninjak, and it was hilarious. Like the way that he drew Ninjak was just perfect. He was so just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna put my feet up on the table when everybody else is being all prim and proper, and like, yeah, he just didn't give a shit, and he's fucking with Eric the whole time, or Arik. Yeah, that shit was awesome.
But I would say though, I don't mind what he's doing on Britannia. I'm okay with it now. But like before, when it's like, oh, we're gonna have Gil do it, and we didn't know what Reap was gonna do, I was kind of bummed on it. Where I was like, God, like how much of the feel of that book is gonna disappear with a difference in art? But his art looks good. I mean, he's definitely a guy that I think in a short amount of time his work has just really grown as far as like the talent level. Because I think some of his early Valiant work I wasn't that impressed with, but now I'm like, dang, let's get more Robert Gill. Like he's good. He's a good artist.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, everything he's posted so far looks awesome. And then, you know, the flip side of that equation, Reap being on EXO, I'm so used to seeing him doing these dirty, gritty feeling books that's what makes because EXO doesn't feel that way to me. You know, like maybe like Reap would be perfect for the arc that's happening right now in EXO, the Barbarians arc. That to me is like the type of stuff that I think of when I think of Reap's work. So that's what's going to be interesting to see how he handles this EXO arc. But he is a really, really talented, versatile artist. So I'm sure it's going to look amazing. I'm excited to start seeing pages from it, and it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
Well, one thing that's kind of been on my mind looking through the Ninja K pages that Reap is that they're not bloody, but there's a lot of good action. He does a lot of great action stuff in the first two issues. So if we get a really like action-packed storyline, which sounds like that storyline might be in EXO, I'm not going to complain. But I do definitely agree that like if you're going to have like a bloodbath for 22 pages, that's the guy you get to draw it. because I don't. There's not a lot of like Valiant guys that do it better. He just looks that just stuff just looks incredible. And I still think of like that those two issues prior to Labyrinth on Wrath of the Eternal Warrior, where there's just lots of like hordes invading Gilad's village and they're just wiping people out, and it's just bloody as shit.
Yeah.
And to me, that's Reap's like bread and butter right there. But that's all I can say is I just hope give me an action packed XO. It won't feel like a waste. If it's a lot of him standing around talking to like Colonel Capshaw or dealing with Gate, it'll just be like,
Right.
come on, man. Like this dude could be
Right.
doing like some badass shit. You just have him stand around.
Not really what I want to see in an XO book. No, and that's kind of what the live chat is saying too. Is Jason's referencing um, he feels like Matt Kim might have a bit of fear to really explore how much power Arik has in the suit. Because he's been avoiding using the suit and kind of trying not to get involved in things, and he just wants to be a farmer. And like Tor pointed out, Arik has some mind things going on right now because of Sana walking away from him and his child dying and all that stuff, and then all the shit that happened on Gorin. But like you were just saying, Josh, I mean, an action-packed XO book is a positive thing. And Venditti showed us that you can use every ounce of Arik's power and still pack an emotional punch and really drive the character home. So hopefully that's something that Kenta is able to do, obviously in his own way. But that's what I'm hoping for from that arc that Reap will be joining. And if my understanding is that we're going to get some of those Eternity characters coming in, and that will be absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Especially with Reap doing the artwork on it. You mentioned you don't want to see Arik just standing around talking to Capshaw, which I agree. Anthony was pointing out that, or he said, Arik and Capshaw and put the heart. Honestly, like I never really thought about that, but what if they got together, right? Like, wouldn't they be a pretty good couple?
I don't know if it would happen because would he still call her Lady Colonel the whole time?
I don't know. I think that either way, that's funny. I like that he calls her
Is that
that.
what he calls her? Like I know that it doesn't come up in Kin's Run, like when he finally came back to Earth, and I don't think it happened in Harbinger Wars 2 either. But I know like Venditti when he wrote XO, and he would always be like Lady Capshaw or Lady Colonel or whatever, which I always thought was a nice touch. It did seem like, I mean, I guess I can't say with any certainty, but like it did seem like man at a time, like maybe having a hard time addressing someone, that's like not his sex. He comes from a world where like the men are running everything, and then
he was trying to be respectful because he kept calling her lady, and then he was like,
it's kind of a funny touch, because he doesn't say it like everybody else says it. He's got his own way of being like Lady Capshaw, Lady Commander, or whatever, like, or Lady Colonel.
He was calling her lady because that's what he's used to calling women in power, and she's like, no, it's Colonel, because he was calling her Lady Capshaw, and she's like, no, it's Colonel. So then he switched to Lady Colonel instead of Colonel Capshaw. But no, I always thought that was a nice touch too from Venditti. And I don't know, I would be cool to see them get together. I think that Capshaw would maybe not jump headfirst into that because there might be a conflict of interest, but I think that would just make it that much more interesting to read.
Yeah, I think like I could maybe have seen it in Venditti's run with the way that they banter on.
Sure.
But I think that like Arik is way distant. I think obviously he's written that way though, where he's not close to anyone in Kint's run.
Sure.
But it makes sense when you look at the backstory, like him losing the child and Sana sending him away. It makes sense to be like a little cold.
So, okay. Chris just brought up Venditti's Hawkman. I haven't read that. I do want to check that out. He did just start a new Hawkman run.
Yeah, I meant to pick it up, didn't pick it up. I've heard nothing but good things about it.
I heard good things. The only person that I saw talk about it, as far as having read it, was saying that it was a really cool, interesting start for a character who gets rebooted a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what that is.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
definitely a character like you couldn't. I mean, like this will go back a little bit before you was a comic reader, but like going back to when Crisis happened, like '86, and DC reboots everything, and then when they started up Hawkman, I think they launched it with Hawk World. Nothing makes any sense with Hawkman's like continuity for like maybe like 2 decades. Like it doesn't make any sense. And it's even joked about. There's an issue of Green Arrow where like Hawkman and Green Arrow are having a conversation. It was written by Kevin Smith, and he's like, "How?" They're both like, "How are you back from the dead?" And they're all, "It's complicated." And you
Yeah.
couldn't explain Hawkman birth and death stuff for the last 30 years and make any sense. It just doesn't make sense. But
Okay.
that said, next time I go to the shop, I definitely plan on picking it up just because I do like Venditti's work. Damage has been awesome. And I
Yes.
don't really like his Green Lantern, which is a bummer because I used to like reading Green Lantern a lot. But I can't get into it. You know, I
You
just
brought
can't,
up a
I
good
don't
point
know if I
though
have
that
any desire to read it though. Again,
you brought up a good point though that Damage is awesome, and I really recommend anybody that's a Venditti fan to go read Damage. It's probably the best Hulk book on the stands right now.
you know what's really shitty though about all those like new age of DC heroes books? Is that those books have like nothing going on anymore, man. Like it seemed like there was a lot of talk, and DC was really pushing behind them, and DC is pretty quiet on those books.
But they are still
Art,
good. Like
they're
Sideways
good.
is still good. Silencer,
Rivets.
when JRJR left, Silencer got really good. Um, no, but anyway. So we do have a comic book to review, a Valiant comic book, no less.
One stinking book, man, and it doesn't stink. I'm not saying like that.
No, but it is this bad boy right here, Bloodshot Salvation number 10. I only got the A cover.
I didn't
Um,
get any cover this week because I didn't go pick up books because it was the only thing in my hold.
I
And
was
with my
gonna get
kids
the
out of
B
school,
cover, but I didn't.
with,
I didn't get it.
yeah, with my
Um,
kids out of school, it's really hard to get to the comic shop because it's not very fun to take them.
um, so this was. We've been waiting for a while to see what was coming, and spoilers! Just in case anybody's not aware, we will be talking about this book with no regard for your sensitivity to spoilers.
Yep.
So if you don't want spoilers for Bloodshot Salvation 10, you probably should pause, go read it, and then come back and finish watching. Um, but this was an interesting book. Braithwaite on art. He's done Bloodshot before, and I will say he's not my favorite Bloodshot artist, but he does do well.
Yeah, I think he does great on Bloodshot. Like I really like what he does on it. I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't want to see him do like every single character in the Valiant universe, but I like seeing him on Bloodshot. He could do Ninjak too. I think I'd be cool with that.
I'd be down for to see him do Ninjak. Yeah, he's not a bad artist by any stretch. One thing that I really like about this book um, is, and by this book I mean Salvation as a whole, since issue one all the way to now. Um, I really like what they've done with Jessie, Bloodshot's daughter. Um, I thought it was interesting the way that they came in and they did the present day when she's a baby, she's an infant, and then the future timeline where she's all grown up, and you're thinking, oh wow, this future's like 9 years, um, 9 years in the future. But how is this all going to connect? And now we find out because of the recent issue that she was aged like that, and there were a lot of questions from her being aged like that. And I really like how Capshaw addressed a lot of those questions that readers had by asking them herself because she didn't understand what was going on. And then we also in this issue got to see the beginnings of Omen coming after Jesse, and I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was done really well.
Yeah, so it definitely seems like the way that this book is structured is that the future that we saw in issue one, it's gonna probably be there, like, really fast. It's coming like within the issue, probably like another issue. Um, I thought this issue was great because here's the thing: like there is kind of a weird thing where you're like, how the hell can Jesse talk and do all these things? And I love that she's all, I've got internet access, you know.
Yeah,
And what's also awesome about it is that she seems way smart, like she's already learned a lot from it. And if you look at the way this issue was, like, I don't think that like necessarily Bloodshot knew what kind of dinosaurs were fighting him. And I just thought, leave it to kids to have way more knowledge, because they're always smarter with technology than adults are. She's using her nanites way more effectively than Ray is because she's a
Oh
kid.
yeah.
My kid can do stuff on the computer I have no idea about, and she's 6. Like, she talks to the computer and it does things. And I'm just like, what? I didn't know I could do that. But I loved how one of the like minor demons was taking over Bloodhound.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. That might have been my favorite thing in this book. We finally
And
get Bloodhound talking.
yeah, and to me that made up for what I almost thought would have been kind of a boring part of what Ray's going through, trying to just trudge through like this future desert in 4002. Not much going on, but I thought the banter was awesome between him and the dog. Great stuff. Then they fought the dinosaurs. He was like the Turok dinosaur hunter, but Bloodshot. And one thing that actually this made me do, whenever there's been things that have happened in Salvation, I've tried to go through and look at the Book of Death one shot for Bloodshot. And I didn't see anything in there necessarily where I was like, oh, that's gonna be, that's gonna happen here. But I'm really interested to see like what happens between him and Bloodshot of 4002 now that New Japan is on Earth. And which is, one of those things I always bitch about where I'm like, give us more 4002. I was really happy to see that in this issue. I love the 4002 storyline, so give us more of that. My only like thing is I'm like, is this going to be like one of those like demonic tricks where it's like, hey, Bloodshot, you need to go into the future and kill someone. Unfortunately, that someone is like somehow connected to him. Like, I don't know. I mean, I would
Well, from
imagine
the
it.
last page, I got the impression the person that he needs to kill is the 4002 Bloodshot.
But I want to know how that ties into like what's going on with Baron Samedi though, because I don't understand how necessarily they're tied together. It's just curious to me, like if that's really what it's going to be, or if that's just like maybe not what we think it is. I guess is what I would say. Because I think at that point, if you're like, oh, he's going in the future to kill himself, that's kind of like, not the most exciting thing. It'll be interesting though. It'll be way interesting to see how he deals against a body full of nanites versus like a person who's just like running with them inside his bloodstream. I wonder if he can just cut his head off and run with it. Be like, see ya.
So here's what we know so far. When Bloodhound is speaking, he says, "You've been sent to this exact moment for a specific reason. Samedi's enemy is still weak here. You are to strike them down before they reach their full potential." And and then he's basically like, "Let's get going." And they bicker, which I thought their bickering was pretty hilarious. And then the last page is 4002 Bloodshot saying, Ray Father, you have come."
Yeah. So another thing that I thought was actually really interesting about this, and I give props to Jeff on this one too, is when I was reading through this and Omen's like, let's go get our nanites back. They're out of control. There's an anomaly. We need to get this thing right now. Load up, give my crazy brother Rampage a bunch of weapons. He's gonna wreck shit. And I was like, how can they just bust up on like Gate? Like Gate's nothing. But then I thought that Colonel Capshaw, she makes a very interesting point where she's like, the nanites belong to Omen. They're Omen's nanites. They're coming to get their nanites. And we just can't do anything about it. So I thought like for a moment where I was like, how can they just do that? It explained it really quick. So I was really happy that I thought this was a great issue. And I've been up and down with Bloodshot Salvation, but I really like this issue.
Yeah, I've been pretty up and down with it as well, but there were so many moments in this book that really stood out to me as being awesome. That last page was awesome. Um, the the interaction between Bloodshot and Bloodhound was great. At the beginning, when it was still just regular Bloodhound, and then also after Bloodhound was taken over, I thought that was awesome. All the Jessie stuff, the development that we get with Jessie and kind of understanding what's going on with her a little bit better, that was really great. The spreads where Bloodshot is fighting the dinosaurs, that was pretty great.
See, and that scene was what made me go, oh, I need to go get Book of Death out. But in Book of Death, it shows him fighting a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and he's got long gray hair, like he's been way old, traveling the Earth.
Sure.
And that
Man,
one was
there's
by Doug Braithwaite too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that was the first Bloodshot issue he did, actually, was the
Yeah,
Fall of
probably.
Bloodshot.
Yeah.
Um, I also really liked the little bit of interaction we got between Rampage and the Scarred Man. I thought that was really interesting. Their kind of their interaction. Um, yeah, so I think that I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. If it really is 4002 Bloodshot that Ray is there to kill, what happens with Magic and Jesse and Rampage and all the rest of them. Um, I don't know. Man, the live chat's going crazy with everybody talking about whether or not the Fall Love books are still canon. I don't even want to get into all that.
They're not.
Oh boy, Josh hath
That's just,
spoken.
that's just my feelings on it. Because here's the thing. I mean, like when you do stories like that, then everybody's like, well, nothing can change because this is what the end of that character is. Bloodshot will just die sitting next to a little kid named Ray with his dog. Like that's his end. Not necessarily. So I don't think that they are. And we did have someone from Valiant tell us once that they weren't necessarily.
That's true. We did have a Valiant creator tell us that when they're plotting out stories, they aren't going back and checking against
Yeah.
uh, the Fall of books to see how well they fit.
Yeah. I mean, like, because like Ninja had that weird robotic arm in the follow book of his, and it's like they don't ever have to do that. He can just die like in 10 years, like of his own life or something like that. And if they don't go back to it, I'm not going to sit there and be like, great, they ruined the character because they didn't include that one story. Or
Yeah.
if we never get to read a story where Bloodshot's got a really terrible beard and he's a pirate, I'm okay with that. And Armstrong is just like a pirate mate of his, even though that would be kind of cool. I'd rather just read more stories with Armstrong and Archer along for the ride.
Yeah, but a Bloodshot Armstrong pirate duo does sound pretty sweet.
Oh, it does.
Anyway, this book, I don't know. I mean, this book is really solid. I don't really know what to score it. To me, it's still not like, I just keep going back to Reborn and how amazing Reborn was. And there were issues of Reborn that were just mind-blowingly good. And while this is good, it's just not on that level. So for me, I'm going to go with a 4 out of 5. I think that it is a really strong book, and I do recommend people pick up this book. But the other issue that I'm having here is I'm so ready for the next Bloodshot series that it's like reading this is just like passing the time to get me there.
No, no, no. You can't look at Lemire's run. Come on, what are you crazy? Because here's the thing: the next two issues could be like absolute insanity because he's got to wrap this thing up. And what are the loose ends of this book? We got to see what happens with Omen trying to get back and get the nanites from Jesse. The Bloodshot Squad's still out there somewhere. We got Rampage. We got how the hell does Ray get back to the present time? Magic and all that kind of shit. So to me, I started thinking about this and I was like, man, can he do it in 2 issues? And he probably can. But a lot going on. And I also started thinking like, I don't know, like if I would have cared that much in the beginning, but like right now I'm just like, please don't kill Jesse.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I think is don't kill her. I would imagine though that she probably loses her nanites. That's just me because he can just absorb them, can't he? Like he did everybody in New York during Bloodshot USA.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at
Oh
the
fuck.
chat here.
Well, what I was saying was, I would imagine that if he loses her nanites, as Bloodshot would reabsorb them, which I think is a big possibility that could happen since he's been shown doing that.
I think it is possible that Jesse could lose her nanites.
I just
But I
think
don't
that if
know.
you, if you kill her, if you kill Magic, that makes for maybe too tragic of an ending for a character like that. Even though like Bloodshot has been such a loner the whole time, like I feel like if they get back to after Bloodshot Rising Spirit has been taken care of, if they get back to doing like present day stories, if the character's backstory is that tragic now, he's probably just going to be like the most unbearable like person, because he's had so much more like ripped out of his life, not just false memories, but now like the real family that he's had is probably going to get killed. And I don't know. I'm kind of like torn on it a little bit, where it's like it's a good plot structure. There's a lot they can work with. It gives him more of a reason to go after Omen in the future, but at the same time, it's like Jesse, it's a little kid. She's like 9 or 10, maybe. So I don't know. We'll just see.
Yeah, it would be nice to see where things go for Bloodshot from Salvation, but obviously we don't know how Salvation will end. But there are a lot of other things, like you mentioned, the Bloodshot Squad, Deathmate is out there somewhere. But what's your score? What's your score on this book? Did you score it?
Yeah, I'm going to 4 also. I thought it was pretty good. So, 4 for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it is a solid book. So I don't know. I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of this. There are 2 issues left, but yeah, it's hard for me not to look forward to the next run. I don't know. Hopefully, this next series is good, and hopefully this isn't the last time we see 4002. It would be nice to get some more from that as well. But yeah, I mean, only 1 book this week. I don't know.
We get 2. I know that.
What's that?
We get 2 books next week, though.
Well, I was gonna say it's better than no books. I'll take 1 book over no books any day.
I know that the no book weeks are the worst, and I feel like this year has been like particularly bad with them.
The worst thing is when you get 3 books 1 week and none the next. That's what really kills me.
Spread that shit out, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, I could wait another week for a great issue if it means that I don't have to have a 0-issue week.
Hey, real quick, one thing I wanted to chime in with, because it's been making its rounds across various social media platforms. And Chris Amundsen, Old Moosey, he's been sharing this stuff out. Bloodshot writer Dwayne Straczynski's daughter, I think, has been like diagnosed with like leukemia. And so it's really sad, she's a pretty young kid, and that stuff always kind of hits me really hard. So, if you're in like the California area, maybe like LA, and there's all sorts of information on the interwebs, on the Get Valiant Twitter, on Chris Amundsen's Twitter, about like how you can donate if you're like the kind of person who's like, I want to donate blood, platelets, or whatever it is. I know I've seen some pictures of some people doing that this week, which is really cool. So, if that's your thing, go donate, help a little kid out. Pretty awesome, and hopefully she pulls through. Because I like Dwayne's run. I like a lot of Dwayne's work. So I don't want to see anything bad happen to the dude.
Well, even if he was a terrible writer, I still wouldn't want
him. His books stink, but no. I like Dwayne's novels. I mean, like, I've read a bunch of his books. I've read a lot of his other work with Marvel and DC, and so it's just like, too bad it happened to him. Hopefully the whole family pulls through, and so if you got that chance, if you're feeling like something you want to do, there's lots of information out there on Twitter, and even I think I'm even on Facebook. Like on where you can donate to help out with that. And you know what? If you don't get tattooed a lot, which I haven't got tattooed for a while, go donate blood. I don't know how it is in some states, but here you can't donate if you've been tattooed within a year.
Weird.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to mention is next week we're getting Ninja K number 8 and Shadow Man number 4. So my 2 favorite Valiant books right now are coming out on the same week. That's going to be insane. Next week's episode, I'm sure, is going to be pretty awesome to record and talk about those books. The only other thing is, I know I see a lot of other people talking about other things that have come out. Jason mentioned The Weatherman from Image. He really enjoyed that. It sounds like Hoosier enjoyed that as well.
I haven't read it yet. I don't even know if I even noticed a PDF come out.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Weatherman, so I don't know, whether that's good or not.
I know
the thing that I did read,
Magic Order came out this week, though. The Magic Order from Mark Miller.
Boom. Yeah, that's what I was just going to mention.
Holy shit! I thought it was so good.
Yeah,
it was. I really dug it.
I absolutely recommend, if you didn't pick up the Magic Order, you fucked up. I would say go get it. That was an amazing issue number one. Issue number ones are tough, man. Like a lot of times, even really good books struggle with their first issue. And this one, I mean, it hit the ground running like mad. And it did a really good job introducing its characters, the world, um, the struggle that they're up against. I mean, there's a lot going on.
You know, I reviewed two number one books this week. I wrote a review for Magic Order. I loved it. And I wrote one for Nancy Drew because I was like, I want to read something super different than I would ever read. And I would never read Nancy Drew. I don't really care.
Don't
But
lie.
but what I noticed in reading both of them was that one book had a shit ton of setup and like nothing going on, and that was Nancy Drew. Where Nancy Drew is like the second issue would probably be like I have a bunch of stuff going on, and Dynamite's putting that out because Dynamite would never pass on a property to license. And but then like Magic Order, I was like, this book had a lot going on, so you weren't just waiting for something to happen. Like shit happens fast in that book, and they explain the world. I mean, there's just so much like information I thought put there where it's like, how could you not get hooked on it? You know, I know like sometimes people don't really like Mark Miller. If you don't like Mark Miller, you're probably not going to like it just because it's Mark Miller, but it's a beautiful book. The art's fucking cool. Great story. I think it's only 6 issues, but if this is what Mark Miller's Netflix work is going to be, like, I don't know what that whole deal is like, is how he sold Miller World to Netflix, but first book's awesome. So go read
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, definitely recommended. But I want to say thanks, everybody. We had like 10 people watching almost the whole time, which
We love
doesn't
that.
sound like much, but that's pretty cool. I'm pretty stoked about that. So I want to thank everybody for showing up. I know David's here, Anthony, obviously Jason, Tor's been hanging out, Hoosier, Travis, Chris was hanging out for a long time with us. Had some really good conversations, and yeah, I really appreciate everybody hanging out.
If you got something you want to say in the chat, say it, you know, because we don't mind talking about it, you know. Like I thought the whole politics thing was done pretty simple, you know, just
Yeah, Chris actually apologized for derailing the conversation, but I thought that was a good
no,
conversation.
no. I don't think that's necessarily even like derailing though. I mean, I think it's on topic personally because it's someone being concerned about what Valiant could look like in a certain book, you know, especially with Livewire having so much attention right now. You know, kind of like how Faith was a couple years ago, where like all of a
Sure.
sudden there's all eyes on Faith. Like right now, it's like Harbinger Wars 2. We just got our Secret Weapons, you know, and now we're gonna have she's gonna have a miniseries come out, and we all liked how she was in Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe by Sierra Foster, who just killed it. So
Oh,
it's a fair comment to make, you know. Come on.
true. I want to apologize. I forgot that Sean is here. Sean, you haven't been talking all that much. I just was looking at who's active in the chat. So I apologize, Sean. But I am glad, Sean, that you're back watching live again because I know that you were hanging out with us for several weeks in a row watching live and haven't been able to. But really happy that you were able to get back in and hang out with us again. And you're always fun to talk to. Even though
I think one of the best parts about doing these live is even though like there's maybe not as many viewers as we get on our listens on the podcast episodes, people interacting, people saying something, whether it's positive or negative, fucking say it, man. Spit that shit out. You know, we don't care.
totally agree. My favorite thing about doing this live, that's the best thing about doing this live is having everybody be able to interact with us as we're talking. And then the second best thing is I don't have to edit these episodes. So
Hey, last thing, real quick. Speaking of our episodes, on Outright Geekery, you can find
oh
every one
yes,
of our episodes. We just got a big update of our Get Valiant page on there. So this is like what, episode 85? You can find 84 more of them.
this
Maybe.
is episode 86 actually.
How many?
Episode 86.
86. So you can probably find like 80 or so episodes because I know we're missing like a couple in the 60s. But yeah, you know, like, you know, if you need to find out where to find us as far as like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever the fuck, you can find it there. All the information is present. I thought Ryan Gaumer did a great job on it. Major props to him on it. So check that out if you ever want to hear our opinion on anything in the past, or just wait to listen to us every Thursday.
Yeah, outrightgeekery.com/getvaliant. It's
Yep.
good stuff.
Easy to remember.
Absolutely. Um, Tor asked if we've been keeping up with um, if we've been keeping up with recording our scores and keeping track of them after he did all that work to compile them for us. And yeah, totally, absolutely, 100%.
No,
I
no. You know what? Speaking, I'm glad Tor's in the chat. I love Tor. Tor's awesome. Tor had a great idea that one day I hope can happen. I don't know
uh,
how, but one time he messaged me and he's like, "You guys need to record Get Valiant and eat hot wings."
oh,
And I
like
was
the
like,
Hot Ones challenge.
"Yeah." He's like, "You guys need to review books and eat really hot wings." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how that would work, but we'll do it, man. If we ever meet, if me and Eric ever are in the same room together, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll happen, but we'll try.
We'll figure it out."
Um,
When we get him to
but
go to Emerald City next year, which I think we need to do, we need to get Eric at Emerald City, and then we're gonna do it.
yeah. As anybody wants to pitch in a grand to get me to Emerald City, let me know. Um,
It costs $1,000.
but I want to thank everybody again. Thank you all for listening, for watching, for hanging out and interacting with us. Hopefully, we'll see you again next week. Same Valiant time, same Valiant channel. And you all take care. We're going to sign off. I'm Eric Baumgard,
I am Josh Rathbun.
and I hope you all have a great week. Stay valiant.
Book of Death isn't canon.